Elon Musk, the South African-born billionaire and influential tech entrepreneur, has repeatedly accused the South African government of enabling or promoting a genocide against white farmers in the country. These claims, often shared through his social media platform X, have sparked significant controversy, drawing responses from South African officials, academics, and international observers. This exploration critically examines Musk's allegations, their context, the evidence, or lack thereof, supporting them, and the broader implications of such claims in the context of South Africa's complex socio-political landscape. Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971 and lived there until 1989, during the final years of apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination that favored the white minority. After leaving South Africa for Canada and later the United States, Musk became a global figure through his leadership of companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI. His recent accusations of genocide in South Africa stem from two primary issues: the high rate of violent farm attacks, some of which target white farmers, and the South African government's land reform policies, particularly the Expropriation Act passed in 2024, which allows land to be seized in certain cases without compensation. Musk's claims gained traction in early 2025, amplified by his significant influence and his role as an advisor to U.S. President Donald Trump. For instance, in March 2025, Musk posted on X, "Very few people know that there is a major political party in South Africa that is actively promoting white genocide," referring to the economic freedom fighters and their leader Julius Malema's singing of the anti-apartheid song "Kill the Boer." He has also criticized South Africa's black economic empowerment laws, claiming they are openly racist and have prevented his company Starlink from obtaining a license to operate in the country. The term white genocide is a controversial and widely debunked conspiracy theory, often promoted by far-right groups globally, which alleges a systematic, racially motivated campaign to eradicate white populations. In South Africa, this narrative centers on violent farm attacks and land reform policies. Musk and others, including Trump, have pointed to incidents of violence against white farmers as evidence of a targeted genocide. They also cite the EFF's use of "Kill the Boer," an anti-apartheid protest song, as incitement to violence. However, South African courts, government officials, and independent researchers have consistently refuted these claims. South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world, with 26,232 murders recorded in 2024, averaging 72 per day in a population of 60 million. Of these, only 44 were linked to farming communities, with 8 victims being farmers. Data from the Transvaal Agricultural Union indicates that in 2023, 23 white and 9 black individuals were killed in farm attacks, suggesting that violence affects multiple racial groups and is primarily driven by crime, not ethnic cleansing. A South African High Court in February 2025 ruled that claims of white genocide were clearly imagined and not real, emphasizing that the narrative lacks credible evidence. The "Kill the Boer" song, central to Musk's accusations, is a historical anti-apartheid chant. South Africa's Supreme Court of Appeal has ruled that it does not constitute hate speech when sung in political contexts, as it is a form of protected political expression under the country's constitution. The court noted that a reasonably well-informed person would understand the song's symbolic nature, not as a literal call to violence. Despite this, Musk and others have framed the song as evidence of genocidal intent, particularly when sung by EFF leader Julius Malema at rallies commemorating events like the 1960 Sharpeville massacre. Musk's accusations also tie into South Africa's land reform policies, particularly the Expropriation Act of 2024, which allows the government to seize land without compensation in specific circumstances, such as when it is unused or serves the public interest. This law aims to address historical inequalities from apartheid, during which the white minority, now about 7% of the population, came to own roughly 70% of commercial farmland. Musk has called these laws racist and claimed they legalize taking property from white people at will with no payment. However, the South African government has emphasized that no land has been expropriated without compensation, and efforts have focused on encouraging voluntary land sales to redress historical dispossession. Critics of Musk's stance, including South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, argue that these policies are necessary to address the economic disparities inherited from apartheid, where white South Africans continue to earn nearly 3 times the average wage of black workers.
So there's a massive responsibility on individuals, unfortunately, who don't often take responsibility, to engage in critical thinking, to think about what they're seeing. Go to another AI, go to ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot and ask it the same question, or tell it that this is what you were told by Grok. What does it think of this? And it will give you a decent response. But the interesting thing with Grok is that it does sometimes then also counter the claims that are being made by its owner. There are actually examples of Grok giving people responses when they ask about this information to say that its owner, Elon Musk, is wrong, he's spreading misinformation, and here is the evidence for it. Because it's not only trained on Twitter content or X content, it's also trained on content that's out there on the internet. And the predominant comment and content on the internet on this topic will point to the evidence that it's a fake claim that has been debunked. And the result of that is that Grok teaches itself eventually how it has gone wrong and how it's been responsible for misinformation itself.
Musk's framing of these reforms as racially discriminatory oversimplifies a complex issue rooted in historical injustice. Additionally, Musk's claim that Starlink was denied a license in South Africa because his not black misrepresents the situation. The Independent Communications Authority of South Africa has stated that Starlink never applied for a license, and BEE regulations require 30% ownership by historically disadvantaged groups for telecommunications licenses, a policy not specific to Musk's race. Musk's accusations have had significant international repercussions, particularly in the United States. In February 2025, President Trump signed an executive order cutting U.S. aid to South Africa and offering refugee status to white South Africans, citing unjust racial discrimination. During a May 2025 White House meeting, Trump confronted Ramaphosa with videos and articles claiming to show evidence of genocide, including footage of "Kill the Boer" and a protest with white crosses misrepresented as graves. Ramaphosa countered that the majority of crime victims in South Africa are black and that the genocide narrative is baseless. The U.S. decision to grant asylum to 59 Afrikaners in May 2025, while suspending protections for other refugees, further escalated tensions. South African officials and academics, such as Sally Matthews from Rhodes University, have criticized these actions as amplifying white supremacist narratives and misrepresenting South Africa's challenges. Ramaphosa has sought to de-escalate by offering Starlink a deal to operate in South Africa, bypassing some BEE requirements ahead of diplomatic talks with Trump. Musk's accusations appear to be driven by a combination of personal bias, rooted in his experiences growing up in apartheid-era South Africa, and strategic interests, such as his push for Starlink's market access. His portrayal of farm attacks and land reform as genocidal exaggerates and distorts the reality, ignoring the broader context of South Africa's high crime rates and historical inequalities. While farm attacks are undeniably brutal, with AfriForum reporting around 50 murders annually, they do not constitute a systematic, racially motivated campaign. The white genocide narrative aligns with far-right rhetoric, as evidenced by its celebration by figures like Nick Fuentes and Patrick Casey, which Musk's platform X has inadvertently amplified. Moreover, Musk's focus on "kill the Boer" overlooks its historical and political significance, as affirmed by South African courts. His selective outrage, coupled with his misrepresentation of BEE laws, suggests a narrative shaped more by ideological alignment with figures like Trump than by empirical evidence. The Grok incident further underscores the dangers of Musk's influence over AI and media platforms, where unchecked biases can spread misinformation rapidly. Elon Musk's accusations of genocide in South Africa are not supported by credible evidence and rely on misrepresentations of crime statistics, land reform policies, and cultural symbols like "kill the boar." While South Africa faces significant challenges, including violent crime and economic inequality, the white genocide narrative oversimplifies these issues and inflames racial tensions. Musk's claims, amplified by his platform and political alliances, risk distorting global perceptions of South Africa and undermining efforts to address its complex legacy of apartheid. By critically examining these accusations, it becomes clear that they reflect a combination of personal grievances, business interests, and ideological leanings rather than a factual depiction of reality. South Africa's path forward requires nuanced dialogue and evidence-based solutions, not inflammatory rhetoric.